Who else has joined us, and where are you joining us from today? Or what else do you have that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'm really curious why I showed up as Sherry when I wonder if she registered me with her name. I got the email that said I was registered, but when I logged on, I was her. I'm so confused.
Yeah, sometimes I log on, I'm her. Sometimes I log on as me, so. Okay, welcome.
Unmute. I think it kind of depends on when the last time you were on, and then if you weren't logged off, then it follows the link and leaves the same name.
Well, and Josh is logging in. We need to change his as well. So,
oh,
welcome,
okay.
Josh. You are on mute. So yeah.
I was getting my name changed, so
Okay.
I wasn't two Sherrys in here.
Everybody wants to be me.
There would have been 3. I was Sherry too. This is getting a little bit scary. I don't know.
Yeah, I know Sherry and I look an awful lot alike, but.
Welcome to Ashley. I think she's probably joining us from Kearney, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley. So, Sarah.
I saw Ashley at the Nautical Rose Sunday.
Oh, I've not heard of that.
Oh, it was Lakeview Marina out at Johnson Lake.
Oh, okay.
Owners of the Alley Rose bought it, and it's the Nautical Rose, sometimes called the Naughty Rose. So I guess you can take that how you want. I don't know, but.
So I see Stacy has joined us. I think she's joining us from Holdridge as well as Christy. So trying to connect with as many of you. Let me know if you are having audio difficulties. And Jared, I see Becca has logged in, and I believe the congressman is joining us. So welcome, Congressman. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect. We are just working our way to the 2 o'clock hour with everybody getting logged on. So we will give them a couple more minutes to do that. So, yeah. So as you see on our screen, we are asking you to just tell us where you're joining us from today. We have a good number of registered participants, and we'd kind of like to know where you're joining us from. So
I'm from desk in Washington.
All right. You might get the award for the one most traveled or furthest away, or
Something like that.
so. And this is fly out day. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, we were done with votes today for the week. And so we'll gather again on Monday.
Good, good. Oh, we've got somebody from South Dakota who's joining us. So
yeah, Casey is one of our viewers from South Dakota that are with Home Address Plus up there, and she's found us. So
yes, periodically joins us. So welcome to Casey. I see somebody from Lincoln has joined us. Wood River, Holdridge. Just Scotts Bluff, of course, as I mentioned earlier. So we will give everybody a couple more minutes, and then we want to get rolling here. So, but if you are joining us, feel free. I see Michael, and I believe Michael's from Hastings. Welcome to Paula.
Hello.
So yeah, go ahead and just throw in your chat box where you're joining us from today. We love to know what the outreach of our HomeNE is. So, okay. So Taryn is joining us from Lincoln as well. So welcome to Taryn and everybody. Oh, we've got somebody from Hebron, Thayer County. Welcome, Carly. Glad to have you with us today as well. So, okay. We'll give one more minute and then we will get rolling, because I do want to honor everybody's time. A reminder to all of you who are attending, if you do have issues with your feed, we are live streaming this on our YouTube channel. So if you have issues or a coworker wants to join us on the YouTube channel, feel free to switch over there and watch that as well. So as I mentioned, I do want to honor everyone's time. I know that Congressman is on a limited time frame today. So I just want to go ahead and get started and officially introduce you to myself. Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Lori Ferguson, and I'm with South Central Economic Development District here in downtown and kind of hot Holdridge. So thank you for joining us today. Our HomeNE webinar series continues to expand across the state and beyond. As we know, Casey is joining us from South Dakota, but many of you have been faithful in making this learning network meaningful and growth oriented. So each month we have new first-time registrations, and I believe as of late yesterday, we had 11 new participants. So we thank all of you who are joining us and checking us out today, as well as a thank you to all of you who are faithful in attending both of our webinars as well as our gatherings. So you are all welcome here at any time. So today we have the pleasure of hearing from Congressman Adrian Smith. He is Nebraska's 3rd District Representative in the United States House of Representatives. Following his time with us, we will also have a spotlight moment on the services that are provided through the economic development districts located across Nebraska. If you've been part of our HomeNE webinar series, today's format might be just a little bit different. The Congressman will be spending time giving us some updates about what's happening both nationally as well as regionally here in Nebraska, and talking about the issues that directly impact us here as a state and as individuals. Following that, there will be an open time of Q&A with him. And as I understand, Congressman, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no topic that is off limits. So in our practice session with Becca, she kind of indicated that. So thank you for being willing to do that. So HomeNE is a learning network, and today we have a unique opportunity to hear and learn from Congressman Smith as he works on our behalf in Washington, D.C. So at this time, I'm going to invite Sharon Heffley. She is the Executive Director of South Central Economic Development District to join us.
Right. Good afternoon and welcome to the June edition of the HomeNE 2021 webinar series. As most of you know, the South Central Economic Development District serves as the lead agent for this learning network. And we are glad you're here, and we're glad to be here. HomeNE is designed for people from all across Nebraska and the Midwest. And our purpose is to build a network of individuals and communities with a shared interest in assessing and addressing our local housing issues, to provide a safe space to discuss what's been tried and to find motivation to take one more step in the right direction, to learn from the successes and struggles of others, to take away new ideas or see things through a new lens, and finally to inspire you. In turn, we want to help you inspire your tribe, because what you do in your community is valuable. Nobody can or will do it quite like you, and now is the time to leave your mark. Today, we're joined by Congressman Adrian Smith, Nebraska's 3rd District Representative of the U.S. House of Representatives. Congressman Adrian Smith has earned praise for his leadership, hard work, and dedication to Nebraska common sense. Smith has tackled issues ranging from biofuels and other forms of domestic energy to transportation, research and development, to fashioning legislation promoting rural America. Smith, who serves on the House Committee on Ways and Means, actively promotes access for Nebraska agriculture products in Asia, South America, and throughout the world. He supports trade agreements, which will continue to create new opportunities for our agriculture producers and their products to keep Nebraska's economy strong. He has also fought for tax relief for Nebraska families, ag producers, and small business owners, including helping to craft the first tax code overhaul to be signed into law in a generation. Smith serves as ranking member of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Select Revenue Measures, formerly known as the Tax Subcommittee, and as a member of the Subcommittee on Health. The Gering native, whose family has called Nebraska home for 6 generations, was first introduced to politics by his grandfather. Prior to his election to Congress, Smith served his hometown as a member of the City Council. He then represented District 48 for 8 years in the unicameral. He and his wife, Andrea, reside in Gering, Nebraska, with their son, Ezekiel. Congressman, thank you for representing rural Nebraska, and thank you for joining our HomeNE Learning Network today.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be with you today. It's even better to hear that you guys are organizing in a way that connects stakeholders in such an important part of our economy, our state, our communities. I've long been interested in housing, and not just because I used to sell real estate, but for some reason, it has really stuck with me, and I'm still fascinated nowadays, being able to look at real estate online and check out the marketplace. I probably spend a little more time just looking at housing online than I probably should. But I learned so much about what's happening out there in, like I said, the marketplace. I love to, when I travel the state of Nebraska, staff knows this, that I like to get to a community a few minutes early and just drive around, look at what's happening, what the development might be, what changes are taking place, what kind of potential could there be. And I just think when it comes to housing, that's one of the biggest challenges we face right now. And, talking to realtors who are telling me, that we have the lowest inventory in housing in decades. We have, given the cost of lumber and what that has done, that impacts negatively, I might add, inventory as well. I'm concerned about inflation and what that does to especially low-income folks, and having to stretch resources farther, where we could very well we're already facing higher prices, which means that it will be more difficult to produce the housing units that we knew even before COVID that we knew we needed, and so. Finding enough workers was difficult, I would say, for slightly different reasons pre-COVID than it is now. And quite honestly, whatever the reason is, we need to address this, and I think we can. We had a hearing, it's been a little while ago now, but when we had a former inmate as a witness in our hearing to discuss work and job opportunities, worker training. Anyway, the Arizona Home Builders Association, for example, some of you have probably already heard me tell this story, but the Arizona Home Builders Association stood up on their own, obviously with permission, but a training program inside the correctional facilities in the state of Arizona, a worker training program. This individual we heard from was an electrician. He was in and out of prison several times. Recidivism was an issue. Drugs were the cause. And anyway, he had been out a while when he talked to us as a witness right here on Capitol Hill. But he talked about getting the training to be an electrician while still incarcerated, but becoming employed in less than a week upon release. And not just that, but advancing in the profession, getting a higher wage for sticking around longer and other obvious reasons. And so it is my hope that something like that can be done across America with relative ease. We've seen some criminal justice reforms that I think beg for things such as these training programs. Obviously, our economy and communities across America are begging for more workers in the trades. And so there's that. We also have this lumber dispute with Canada that predates COVID. predates USMCA. It's unfortunate that the USMCA did not include a resolution for this dispute in the trade of lumber, because it's really impacting us. So right now, that exacerbates the other challenges we have with supply chains that we know are very difficult. Ultimately, consumers get kicked, and that is troubling to me and many others. So as we are looking at various policies right now, the proposal to basically significantly increase, not just a little bit, but significantly increase the capital gains tax and eliminating the stepped up basis. That is, they're already saying that there will be fewer transactions because the penalty is so high. I worry that impacts housing as well. So we are fighting this significantly, especially in what I call Ag America. This is especially punitive to agriculture, but it goes beyond that. I would worry that someone would hold on to perhaps some real estate longer than they would otherwise because they want to avoid having to pay this huge tax. 1031 exchange, as a remedy, that would go away too. We have our work cut out for us, certainly. I do think we're making some progress in pushing back on these things that I think would be particularly damaging to rural America via agriculture, directly and certainly indirectly as well. So with that, I could filibuster our whole time here together, but I don't want to do that. I want to know what's on your minds and hear from you. So what kind of questions or comments do you have, or do I find that in the chat?
I will read those to you,
Okay.
sir. So Sarah is asking a question about, are there any programs available to help purchase and rehabilitate rundown houses for rental housing? I believe she's asking available to municipalities as well as individuals.
Yeah, I believe there would be some there, but it would be limited if at all. As someone who it's our home in Nebraska is a 100-year-old house that we rehabilitated. As I like to say, we're proud of our project, but the county assessor is even more proud of it. That speaks to another set of issues that I probably don't want to belabor here today. I'm glad that we can still deduct those property taxes, but if anyone related to the legislature is on the line right now, please get us some relief, because the benefits of these home improvement projects, and I don't speak just from my perspective that my wife and I have experienced, but there are tax dollars that go in, sales tax of materials, and the spin-off impact is a huge benefit to a local economy, and I would hope that we would not discourage that with. I would even add some pretty arbitrary analyses of home values as perceived by a particular county assessor, whatever, a respected county assessor, I should say. So, but as it comes to federal resources, I can't speak to the specifics. There's some things out there, but I think a better approach to that would be some, perhaps some property tax credits to where it would keep things local with both, the capital outlays and the benefits. And there are just so many benefits to improved communities where perhaps there are fewer law enforcement calls to a given community because it's been rehabbed, and that community pride that can take many forms. So.
Okay, great. Before I continue with the next question, would you like to introduce your staff that's with us today?
Yeah, I believe we have Val on the line. Val is out of the Scottsbluff office. I think I saw Jared's name on the list as well. Jared's out of the Grand Island office. And let me scroll down the list here, see who else might be on the list. I think that's everyone from my offices, shall I say. Both Val and Jared, they travel across the district, meeting with folks, and so oftentimes on their own, but oftentimes along with me. And so I'm anxious as things reopen from COVID to return to in-person visits, and anxious to see projects and so forth that have taken place across the district. So please let us know.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head, the two of them that are here, and they do travel a great distance across the district. So Michael wanted you to shed some light on the possibilities of reclaiming our empty downtown spaces and turning them into productive spaces. They're often usually unused upper floors. We were just in Hastings a couple weeks ago and toured some of the amazing upper level living facilities that have been created there. Those are definitely places that can be tapped into to fill community needs. But do you have any thoughts along those lines?
Well, yeah, I mean, Hastings and Grand Island have really taken off in that respect. I know Scottsbluff has done some things too. In fact, there's probably, any community with some commercial space with more than one floor, we've probably seen that a little bit. It seems to be really expanding, though, most recently. So I hope to see that continue moving forward, and again, that property taxes would not stand in the way of that. I know that property tax assessments for commercial / downtown areas can be all over the map value wise, and so I hope that it does not become too much of a disincentive for encouraging that development. Again, it's not like we have this huge surplus of housing, where we're concerned about devaluation or something. We are talking about extreme need for more housing. And, Ranke Manufacturing Industrial, they just bought an old motel to turn it into residential housing because they needed housing for workers, and they needed workers to be, to just continue standard operation of the company, not to mention perhaps, new opportunities of expansion on the horizon. So, again, I just hope that we can have our tax policies in concert in a way that does not create a barrier to investment, and not just that, that investor who might be the developer, but the occupants years hence, that they wouldn't see property taxes becoming a deal breaker.
Good. The questions continue, so I will just keep asking away here. What are the best tools for housing development and redevelopment for small communities, say 400 and larger? They don't typically have the resources or a comp plan or a blight study, so they can't open the door to tax increment financing. And especially if they're not considered to be a low moderate income community, they can't tap into things such as block grants. So what tools might you be familiar with or might be on the horizon that could assist some of those communities to grow themselves?
Right. Well, again, the workforce is probably the number one barrier right now, or lack thereof. And so I want to really emphasize how important it is in my mind that we address this. The unemployment bonus that has the $300 a week that's scheduled to expire, but not until September. We're going to miss a building season, basically, as we're waiting for that to expire. At least the president, and today we had a hearing with the Secretary of the Treasury, it sounds like they are willing to let that expire and stay expired. But I think it's lost opportunity here this in the middle of this building season. We can get you perhaps more information in terms of what other details there might be. Most of it, though, as you may have reflected a bit in your concerns, is it's geared to low-income housing, basically qualified tenant housing that or qualified occupant. There are a lot of restrictions around that. I will say, and I would appreciate your feedback, not necessarily right now, but perhaps if you could ponder this, and that is, we have seen projects where the qualifications to live in a particular complex are so strict that perhaps we could see more opportunity and spin-off in communities with housing to maybe relax some of those restrictions a bit. I want to be mindful that market-based housing is very important. We don't want to give up on that, and we don't want to put our thumb on the scale too much that would lead to market distortions. But again, we have such a shortage that I think we need some flexibility out there. So that the terms and details of that flexibility, I would love to get your feedback on how you think that could work. Where, say, a private developer and perhaps some public agencies, if necessary, coming together, that there could be the needs met with more flexibility.
Okay, thank you. Amanda, she's joining us from North Central, Northeast Nebraska, lives in a community that has a developer who wants to build 40 homes in a town of 1,500. So she's asking, when would there be incentives for developers to add housing, and not necessarily low income or workforce, but what might be on the horizon, either from national or state levels, that you might be aware of that could incentivize those developers?
Well, I hope a resolution on the lumber dispute with Canada would be a huge relief. That would be a real shot in the arm to a project like that. When you look at the percentage of the overall cost as it relates, the percentage being lumber, that is, and it's not just new home starts either. It's the fence that someone wants to build that can help the local lumber yard grow the economy. It's just so many different things. So I'm hoping that there's more pressure to resolve this dispute now that we've seen the spike in lumber prices the way it has been. So that resolution would be huge. I think that speaks to why we need good trade policies on the books. That when we have disputes happen, it's a race to the bottom really quickly. And it's such a chilling impact to investment that ultimately hits the public coffers as well, not to mention opportunity for consumers who have been working hard to afford what they thought that house was going to cost. And then when they see what it is going to cost, it's just a chilling result. So we need to get that resolved.
Okay. If I can just elaborate there, how can your constituents impact or get involved in that conversation, contacting your office? What can we do to maybe sway that in our favor?
Well, number one, any details, just helping paint the picture of reality. Those details, if you wouldn't mind sharing those with me, that's helpful. And because let me just say that Canada and the US enjoy the most productive trade partnership of any two countries in the world. Very productive. And yet what I've learned through the renegotiation of NAFTA that turned into USMCA, for example, is yes, we got a lot of things done with that, but there's more work we need to do. Lumber would be one of those examples. Some retail trade along the border would be another example. I don't want to belabor you with some of these details, but so sharing the story, and I know that Canada listens. I mean, they had someone present at the Nebraska Chamber event that takes place every year there at Ashland at Sac Museum. There are opportunities like that pop up where I know Canada is listening, and we want to really remind them that we've got some problems right now, and they need to be ironed out.
Okay, thank you. So they could just contact your offices either here in the district or in DC and share their stories.
Yes, I would appreciate that a lot.
Great.
It really helps me communicate the needs directly to Canadians as I'm able to interact with the embassy and consulates and so forth.
Okay, great. Sarah wanted to know, and maybe you've touched on this, what federal initiatives, if any, are you supporting that will help make construction of workforce housing more affordable to accomplish? Her community has been doing a lot of community development block grant programs, and Davis-Bacon falls into those programs, and the wage scales tend to be 2 to 3 times higher than market wages for the same position. So do you have a response there?
I would love to see us reform Davis-Bacon to a reasonable policy. For those of you who may not be familiar with Davis-Bacon, it is a federal requirement relating to wages that is intended to steer contracts that involve federal dollars to union shops. I have a pretty strong opinion about how bad a policy this is, but as you point out, it's where this is impacting the housing units that consumers need, and so it's my hope that and I wouldn't expect politically to just for it to go away, but let's look at some reforms so that we can use a reasonable approach, as you point out, with still strong wages, very strong wages in so many cases across Nebraska, that we can do better with our federal policy involving more flexibility. I will say there are also, I constantly hear from builders who outline kind of some of the ridiculous requirements and regulations of that ultimately impact cost as well. So I think we could see perhaps the technology being able to address some of these things rather than the heavy hand of the federal government always coming up with new regulations that perhaps can be well intended, but in practice they aren't very productive, especially as it is likely to drive up the cost of housing for everyone.
Okay. I would say any of us who work with the block grant program in construction would say a hearty amen to what you just said. I have joked with Sharon at times that I'm going to quit my job and become a painter because of the wage rates that they received, except my husband won't let me touch a paintbrush because I do such a horrible job. So it would be short-lived, my painting profession. We have a question from Amanda. Do you have a good reference site that explains exactly how the ARP, the American Rescue Plan Act funds can and cannot be used by smaller communities?
I couldn't point to that immediately, but let's look for that. Jared, if you don't mind, let's get more information on that. Again, one of the problems is it's not as readily accessible as perhaps the advocates said it would be. American Rescue Plan was passed with a whole bunch of money unspent from the prior round of relief. So again, I don't want to complain about that too much. I want to look forward into how we can address the challenges we face. But in the meantime, we'll get you more information on that.
Okay. We did have a question on the dispute with Canada that you've addressed very well. The additional question is whether there are congressional actions contemplated to move the issue with Canada to resolution.
Not enough right now, to be quite honest. We had a very aggressive, and I'm no fan of tariffs. Let me just be very straightforward with you about that. But trade and leveling the playing field of trade was a huge priority during the previous administration. And tariffs could have been a part of that in terms of the productivity of moving, toward more open trade. But without getting into too much detail here, we have basically given Canada all sorts of access to our markets without them giving as much access to ours or other countries too. And so we've got our work cut out for us. We made a lot of progress, I think, previously with the new administration. Actually, I think we've got a pretty good trade ambassador right now that the president appointed. She used to work with the Waste Means Committee and is highly regarded by many on both sides of the aisle. So I'm hopeful there. But it's still unclear exactly what the trade priorities will be with the new administration. But believe me, I will be asking them to get this resolved because it is costing our economy dearly. And my fear is that it's more, the damage. Well, if we resolved it tomorrow, the damage could have a longer tail to it in terms of reduced inventories that will take a long time to recover from.
Okay, thank you. What other questions does anyone have for the congressman?
This isn't about housing necessarily, but the legislation that's been introduced to increase the MSAs to 100,000 would impact, probably in your district, would that just impact Grand Island?
Well, I would need to see the details on that, but well, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I'm not sure. Short answer is I'm not sure how that would impact the 3rd district. I know that there have been some unintended consequences previously, and so I hope that we can get that resolved. I've signed a letter of concern, basically in opposition. So yes, I think Island would be impacted. We just don't want some unintended consequences to prevail there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda wants to know if you foresee the economic impact checks to end soon so we can see more individuals returning to the workforce.
Short answer, yes. September is part of that. Now, I will say that, September with the sunset of these so-called unemployment enhancement payments. Now, keep in mind, these are payments that are above and beyond what states were already doing and were supposed to be sufficient. Okay, so that's why I think it is particularly important for us to stop that. We should have done it months ago, but there is growing support for letting that expire, and I hope the president stands by his willingness to let that expire. It has huge expense to our economy, and workers themselves ultimately, as it has, I think, some unintended consequences. And what we did a year ago to respond to COVID, and we had a huge priority. I mean, the PPP, as you probably know, I mean, that was tailored around keeping people in the workforce, even if we had to spend some dollars to do that. And yet the payments that used to be $600 a week now are hard to believe I'm saying it's down to $300 a week, but that's still a significant amount there. And it just, I hear from employers who tell me they're having to compete with the federal government on these payments, and that's not what it should be about.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the congressman? Did I hear someone open their microphone? If not, what was the most important thing that took place this week in DC that impacts us?
I would say I was encouraged by the Secretary of Treasury today, effectively saying that they can support the expiration and letting this unemployment payment bonus expire. And I don't think we need to worry about people really being in need as a result of that, because we still have the state unemployment programs that exist. And so I was encouraged by that. But I will say I'm concerned about these proposed tax increases. We're learning more about that all the time. The good part of that is that I think there's growing opposition to these tax increases that I think would be so damaging to investment, chilling definitely to the economy. And for example, the capital gains tax policy as proposed with doubling the rate, that is expected to create lockout, as I was talking about earlier, meaning it would generate less revenue as a result. The only way they can raise more revenue with that is to repeal the stepped up basis, which again is a very problematic scenario, especially for agriculture, among other businesses.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well,
I do have one more question if you have a moment, and then we'll.
come on.
Okay. What would be the process to change Davis-Bacon? And this would have been a question of mine. We have heard that it's so deep in statute that it can't be changed. Is there a process for doing that?
Oh, it could be changed. The reality is that there are enough Republicans who come from areas that where there's some political pressure to maintain that, but there are enough Democrats plus a handful of Republicans that keep that around. So it's a particularly arbitrary policy in our areas, rural America especially. But I would love to know. I've been hearing, whether it's from housing authorities, from other agencies, how problematic this is to small operations. And what I would hope we could do is increase the threshold to hopefully move out of off the horizon what you have to deal with. And that would be an approach. It could be repealed in its entirety. We just don't have the votes to do that right now. So I'm mindful of that. There are lobbying firms here in Washington that exist to keep this around. And so I think we want to, flexibility. I don't expect that we would have the votes to change the whole thing, like I said, but let's offer some flexibility for folks such as yourselves that pay strong wages. And I hear how, the paperwork alone is a burden as well. So in this age of such a restricted unavailable workforce, we need as much flexibility as we possibly can, whether it's paperwork or whether it's the cost that is involved.
Okay. So I would encourage everyone who has experienced Davis-Bacon to let your office know the stories there. So it's somebody just mentioned it's been in law since 1931, but it's definitely time to be reformed. So well, I know that the congressman has a top of the hour meeting that he needs to make. So we're going to let him go and continue on. But I just wanted to say thank you so much, Congressman, for taking the time and joining us today. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you joining us. And this is we're in our 4th year of HomeNE, as I mentioned earlier, and this has been a very memorable day. So thank you so much. So
thanks for the work you do. It's important, and let's keep in touch.
Definitely. So, and I hope that Val and Jared will continue with us as we continue on, but we will say thank you once again and let you get on with your day. So
thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. We have put his contact information, both the DC office as well as the district offices, and his website on your screen. So feel free to connect with anyone in those offices. I'm going to transition to Sharon now for our spotlight moment, where she is going to introduce you and share a little bit more about some of the economic development districts in the state.
All right. Well, one of the purposes of the HomeNE Learning Network is to build a network. And within that network, we want to ensure that you are connected to resources. And when you look at who are you going to call, who can help us, who can come help us think through, we have this housing problem, we're not really sure how to address it. We just want you to know in the program Spotlight this month that the development districts that are all part of NROC, or your Nebraska Regional Officials Council, can be there to help. And so we have 3 that we're spotlighting this month. The first is Simcoe, or the Siouxland. Oh, there's your map. Sorry, forgot that slide. There's your map. And so you can kind of identify where you are, but they're pointing up there, Dakota County. Simcoe has 1 county in Nebraska because it's part of the Metro Planning Organization that is based out of Sioux City. But if you are in that county, you can look to Simcoe to help you with grant writing for housing projects, grant administration, home rehab projects, housing studies, and housing inspections, as well as down payment assistance. So again, that's probably a small portion of who's on today, but they do cover 1 county. Next is actually our organization, South Central Economic Development District. And again, we help with grant writing or administration. And I should back up and say, I think each of us really helps with just that thinking through, just sitting down. I sat in a small community last night, and they said, we want to know how to get a hold of some houses and how to get them rehabbed, and we'd like to buy them and do that. What are our options? And so I think we're all available for that. Certainly SCED is. But then as you get into that project development, we can help complete those grant applications, help with the grant administration. We have rural workforce housing loan funds that we can loan to community groups, contractors, economic development groups, partnerships. We do housing development and housing studies. And finally, for today is the West Central Nebraska Development District. And we all got really creative with our names. So I guess when you hear who we are, you kind of know where we are too. But CJ and her team out in Ogallala, again, they can help you develop ideas, connection to resources, as well as putting together the grant applications, grant administration, home rehabilitation, housing studies and plans, and housing development.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Do you want to talk a little bit about our spring gathering we held a couple weeks ago in Hastings?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to switch to the gallery view here a little bit so I can see who all was at that gathering last week that's on the call today. Anybody? Yeah. We have Lori. I know Michael was. I don't think his camera's on. He was on as a presenter. So, we just had a blast. It was great discussion and great fellowship. And we got to hear from a downtown business, a member of the Downtown Business Improvement District, and of course, Randy Chick, who runs the CRA and the Downtown Business Development District. And Dave Rippey came in and talked to us about why they do what they do in second story development. Michael shared with us the other projects going on in the community, and we did a tour. And it was hot, and I assure you we got our steps in, but man, it was fantastic. It was so much fun to see everything from 800 square foot maybe units up to the bottom center picture. I guess it's the right picture, 15,000 square foot living space for one family. And it was great fun. If you missed it, I would encourage you to be sure you're in on the next one, because there was just a lot of good conversation that came out of that. These are great opportunities, not just to network with each other, but you see in the top right corner, Steve Charleston was there. He was able to share some insight on things that we didn't otherwise have, but people were able to say, hey, Steve, what about this? What about that? And if you don't know Steve, he's kind of head of that community development or the block grant side of the Department of Economic Development. So just a lot of fun. That's that right center right picture where the cursor is pointing. Maybe it's just my cursor. Oh, it is. Sorry. That was taken underground in a garage that's under Downtown Living, the group picture there. So we really had a great time. I hope you're at the next one.
Plans are already being made for the next one. We're not yet ready to announce where that will be, but hopefully now post-COVID, there will be a fall gathering for 2021 with a different theme and a different topic. So Sharon, you reminded me when you mentioned Steve Charleston, I neglected to give our thanks to the Department of Economic Development, who is a financial sponsor of our HomeNE network. So just to begin to conclude today's webinar, just to remind you that all webinars, including today's, is I don't know grammar today. You can find webinars on our website. How's that for an answer there? But more importantly, HomeNE Learning Network exists because of housing stories we hear from you. Sometimes we have themes, sometimes topics, sometimes we have community stories. Today we had Congressman Smith, but if you live in a community, it doesn't even have to be a Nebraska community. A number of months ago, we had Pipestone, Minnesota on a much colder day than today, talking about their program and using high school students to rehab homes. So if your community or a community you know of has some success stories related to housing that are going on, would you let Sharon or myself know? We would love to talk about that with you and possibly feature something in the future on a HomeNE webinar. So there you see just a composite of some of the great speakers that we've had in the past. So just to wrap up today's event, I want to make you aware of next month's speakers and topic. It's going to be July 15th, and we're going to revisit Norfolk. If you were with us in March, we had Gary Brettschneider and Tom Hickenbotham talking about their infill revitalization. They were doing some purchase, rehab, resale, filling of vacant lots. And so many great stories coming out of Norfolk that we're going to have Andy Colvin and Candace Alder, both with the City of Norfolk and the Economic Development Group up there, talking about their strategy for housing development. We heard about this first back in Schuyler in 2019, that they had a playbook, and we kept searching and looking, and we're finally be able to make the connection with these individuals. So they're joining us next month to talk about what they're doing to incentivize and recruit developers to the Norfolk area. So I hope you'll make that date a priority to join us. We are so thankful for your continued support of the HomeNE Learning Network. So are there any other thoughts or questions, comments you wish to share? Well, if not, I just want to say have a great rest of your day. Be safe, stay hydrated, and thank you for joining us today. We will see you again next month.
Hey, Lori,
Yes.
would you be able to just check back with Adrian Smith's office if they could get us that useful link for the ARP?
I'm sorry. You cut out on me, Amanda. Did you want to just call me or catch me?
No, I was just going to see if you want to do with Adrian Smith, see if he would send us that link for the funding. He said he
Yes.
had a good link probably we could use because it's very
Amanda, I already messaged Jared and asked him to
Awesome.
forward it to me. And when we receive it, I will send it out to the participants today.
I appreciate that. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you.